Hola, ¿qué tal amigos? Bienvenidos a mi canal Spanish World. Ustedes saben lo que va a pasar, ¿verdad? Así es, les voy a enseñar español, porque eso es lo que hacemos aquí. Aprendemos español, porque a mí me gusta el español. Y yo sé que están pensando, pero oye, güero, el español es tu segundo idioma. Bueno, eso depende de cómo ustedes definen segundo idioma. Para mí es mi primer idioma porque es mi idioma favorito. Sí, soy idiomista, así es. No soy racista, pero sí soy idiomista, porque a mí me gusta más el español sobre cualquier otro idioma. Y esa es la razón que yo soy el mejor para enseñarles el español. No porque soy mejor que otras personas, sino porque yo soy más apasionado del español que cualquier otra persona. Y también sé más de la gramática. Bueno, yo sé que hay muchas personas que saben mucho de la gramática, pero yo sé bastante y a mí me apasiona. Así que soy el mejor para enseñarles el español. Y hoy, ¿qué es lo que vamos a hacer? Vamos a hablar acerca de algo muy importante. Los pronombres dobles. Okay. Look, guys, what if I told you that I have some friends, right? And I also have some boxes. And what if I want to give the boxes to my friends? And I told you, what if I told you I'm going to give them to them? What does that mean? I'm going to give them to them. What does the first mean? I have some boxes and I have some friends. Okay? I want to give the boxes to my friends. I'm going to give them to them. Those are double pronouns. Okay? If I say I'm going to give them to them, first of all, is a contraction in English. It means them. The first them refers to the boxes, and the second them refers to the friends. That's an example of double pronouns in English. I'm going to give them to them. How do you do that in Spanish? Well, there's a way, and it's important to know how to do this. If you don't know how to do this in Spanish, I'm sorry, you don't speak Spanish. But don't worry, if you follow me en las redes sociales, yo les puedo enseñar todo eso. Porque a mí me gusta. I'll show you guys how to do it. It's fun. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so here's the double object pronouns. If I have some boxes, I want to give them to the friends, I say I'm going to give them to them. So here it is. I'm going to give them to them. Right? So this is what I was saying. The first refers to, let me get rid of this little side thing here. Get rid of this. There we go. Sorry about that. Zoom in a little bit. All right. So the first refers to the boxes, right? I'm going to give them the boxes, them. I'm going to give them to them. All right. So the first refers to the boxes, and the second refers to the friends. So how do we say this in Spanish? I'm going to give them to them. I'm going to give them to them. How do we say it, guys? Well, in Spanish, you say voy a dárselas, or you say se las voy a dar. And here's the thing. In Spanish, you can put the pronouns always go before the conjugated verb. But in the case that you have two verbs, the first one will be conjugated and the second one will be left in the infinitive form. In that case, you can attach them to the end of the infinitive form. I talk about this a lot in a lot of my other videos that aren't even necessarily about double object pronouns. But you see these same reoccurring patterns all over in the language, okay? And so how do you say it? I'm going to give them to them. In this case, you say, voy a dar, se las. Voy a dárselas. Voy a dárselas, amigos. Así se dice. Voy a dárselas. Voy a dárselas. You could also say like, se las voy a dar. Se las voy a dar. Voy a dárselas. Okay. So, let's see here. Pronombres dobles. Actually, a lot of times in Spanish are called complementos. Complementos dobles, or just simplemente dos complementos. So when you have dos complementos, two pronouns, remember, there's actually three of them that are in question. You have reflexive pronouns, indirect object pronouns, or complementos indirectos, and then you have direct object pronouns, or complementos directos. And here they are. So the direct object pronouns, often designated by DOP or IOP for indirect object pronouns. These are them right here. Remember, we always follow the format of the subject pronouns. The subject is the thing that does the verb. And so the thing can, a lot of times it's a person, but a lot of times, other times it can be like a thing. So whatever it is doing the verb, that's the subject of the verb. And these are the pronouns that can take the place of the subject. So if I'm doing the verb, it would be yo. Or if you're doing the verb, it would be tú. And then él means he, and ella means she. And if it is doing the verb, it's down in this spot right here, but in Spanish, we never say it, okay? And then usted is you formal. Nosotros means we. Vosotros means you guys in Spain. Ellos means they. Ellas means they if they're all females. And then ustedes means you guys when you're not in Spain, all right? Or in other words, it means ustedes, and ustedes means you guys in Mexico or Guatemala or, you know, any of the South American countries like Argentina, and any one of them, ustedes, all right? Now, direct object pronouns, these are the ones that go with transitive verbs, right? So these are for transitive verbs. Now remember, transitive verbs are verbs that require an object. I know I've said this before, but it's important to remember. So a verb that requires an object would be like to have, tener. Tener, well, I can have a person or I can have a thing. That pretty much sums up everything. But of course, there's always the singular and then there's the plural. So myself, that would be the first person singular. That would be me. Me tengo. I have myself. Me tengo, right? Or nos tenemos. We have ourselves. Or te tengo. I have you. Or os tengo. I have you guys. Or lo tengo. That means I have it. Or la tengo means I have it. If the thing that I have is feminine, like la rosa, la tengo. The rose, I have it, right? Or los libros, the books, los tengo. Or las rosas, las tengo. I have them. So now in this case, them refers to objects, right? Them, if I tell you them, the first thing you think of is probably like a group of people, them. But actually, them, a lot of times, refers to things, right? Like these pencils, I have them. I have them. We say it's a contraction. Now, indirect object pronouns, these ones are for intransitive verbs. Intransitive verbs. Intransitive verbs don't require an object. And an example of an intransitive verb is like gustar. And sometimes it's easier to, and by the way, there's degrees of verbs of how badly they require an object and how badly they do not require an object. There's varying degrees of how transitive a verb is and how intransitive a verb is. It's an interesting subject that you can go and read up on if you want. But the easiest way to navigate through this is to just simply look up in the Spanish dictionary and see if the verb is transitive or intransitive in the certain use. And there will be different uses of the verb where it's like more transitive in one use and then less transitive in another. Like gustar, if it's used transitively, it means to taste because you have to taste something. But if gustar in its normal everyday use, which means to please, or in other words, I like, to like, well, in Spanish, it's an intransitive verb and it's being done to you, right? And so I want you to remember these indirect object pronouns as the indirect object pronouns that are used with verbs like gustar. And that's really the easiest way to think about it. So you would say me gusta, and that's like a mí. Remember those emphatic pronouns. A mí me gusta, or a nosotros nos gusta, or a ti te gusta, or a vosotros os gusta, or a él le gusta, or a ella le gusta, or a la cosa le gusta, to the thing, like it pleases the thing likes it. So whatever the thing is, it'll be le, or a usted, you formal, le gusta jugar videojuegos. Le gusta jugar videojuegos. Que bueno. Les gusta, that would be like a ellos, a ellas, a ustedes. Okay. Those are the indirect object pronouns. And there are other verbs like gustar, like me fascina, or me interesa, or me agrada. I mean, there's just a lot of verbs that'll fit there. Once again, you can look those up in the Real Academia Española, the official Spanish dictionary that's online, and it'll tell you if the verb is transitive or intransitive, if you have any questions about that. And so that's how you know when to use these ones versus these ones. The good news is there's quite a bit of overlap, right? The me, the nos, the te, the os, those are all the same. It's the third person where you wind up having problems. Lo, la, or is it lay, lay? I mean, is it lay or low? Which one is it, right? Anyway, then you also have reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are the pronouns used with reflexive verbs, like llamarse. That's probably the first reflexive verb that you learn when you learn Spanish. Llamarse. Me llamo. I call myself. Te llamas. You call yourself. And it's normally followed by a name, right? Me llamo Jonathan. ¿Cómo te llamas tú? Oh, te llamas Raquel. Mucho gusto, Raquel. Okay. So now that we know that when we're talking about double object pronouns, we're talking about these. Now, only two of them are ever used at a time, but it could be any two of these. But there's an order that they go in. And the order that they go in is this order right here. Oh, I guess I have to erase these off the board. 1 second. There we go. So the order that they go in is like this. So in English, an example of double object pronouns is give it to me. So it would be the thing, and then to me is the person who's receiving it. So this would be, in English, this would be the direct object pronoun, and this would be the indirect object pronoun. But in Spanish, it's the opposite because the direct object pronoun is always last. And so it would be da me lo. It's like saying, give me it, give me it, give me it. That's the order that we say it in Spanish, which is incorrect in English. The correct way to say it in English is give it to me. But you could say, give me it. You can say, give me, give me, give me, give me it. Give me it now. And people would probably understand you. But the correct way is give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. All right. So only two are used at a time, but they go in the following order. Reflexive pronoun, indirect object pronoun, and direct object pronoun. Once again, you're only going to use two of them at a time. You know, it might be just these two. It might be just these two, or it might be, you know, the reflexive pronoun and then the direct object pronoun. But whatever it is, they go in this order, and only two of them are used. So the other rule is you can't have lay low in Spanish. There is no lay low in Spanish. So the le, if you remember, that's like used with gustar. So this is an indirect object pronoun. And then lo is a direct object pronoun. You can't have lay low in Spanish. And these are typically the third person. But with the indirect object pronouns, obviously it can refer to the second person formal as well. But either way, lay, lo does not go, okay? And so the lay has to turn into say. So give it to him would be da se lo, because the lay has to turn into say. It would be da le. For example, if I say like this guitar, I would say la guitarra. I would say dale la guitarra. Dale la guitarra. Manuel. Manuel quiere la guitarra. Manuel wants the guitar. Da se la. I can't say dale la. I have to say da se la. Dásela. Dásela. Está bien, ya se la di. O no quiero dársela. No. No se la quiero dar. Right? I don't want to give it to him. I don't want to give it to him. Anyway, so that's what happened. Da se lo. Remember that the direct object pronoun has to match in number and gender with the object that it is describing. So la guitarra would be la. La rosa would be la. Las rosas would be las. Las guitarras would be las. So let's go ahead and look at some examples here. Let's test you guys. Let's see if you learned. And this is used all the time in Spanish, just like, give it to them is used all the time in English. We're constantly using pronouns to replace the things that we're talking about for simplicity's sake. We're trying to simplify what we say and use the least amount of words possible. So instead of repeating the whole entire thing, we replace what we're saying with object pronouns. So answer the questions in the negative using object pronouns. Remember, you can't have laid low in Spanish. Follow the model. ¿Diste los chocolates a María? No. No se los di. No se los di. So this means, did you give the chocolates to Maria? And the answer is going to be no, I didn't give them to her. Refers to the chocolates. Her refers to Maria. See how we're replacing the objects in question with object pronouns? No, I didn't give them to her. And we do that to make it more simple. It might seem complicated, but native speakers never get confused over this. Native speakers always know what you mean. In English, in Spanish, in any language, right? We just never get confused about this kind of stuff. It's only when we're trying to learn other languages that we get confused. We're like, no, wait a minute. What's it say? What's a low? What's all this stuff referring to? That's what we have to pay attention to right here. All right. So we have me abriste la puerta. That means, did you open up the door for me? And what's the answer going to be? Me abriste la puerta. We have to answer no. So we say no. And in Spanish, you say no twice. No. No. Well, I mean, just to follow the model. I guess you don't really have to. You say, no te abrí la puerta. No te la abrí. Right? Me abriste la puerta. So we know it's in the to form because it's abriste. That's the preterite to form. And so you're going to answer in the to form. No. No te la abrí. No te la abrí. All right. And then let's do this other one. Te comiste la comida. Now this is a reflexive te. Te comiste is comerse la comida. Me comí toda la comida, right? Te comiste la comida, and we're going to say no. No me la comí. No me la comí. No. No me la comí. Whoops. No me la comí. No, no me la comí. So the me is a reflexive me, and the la is a direct object pronoun referring to la comida. All right. Tus papás les trajeron las rosas a las viudas. Did your parents? Tus papás means parents. Did your parents? Tus papás les trajeron. Traer. This is traer, which means to bring in the preterite. Tus papás les trajeron. Right here it says les. Now we know that this verb is being done to them. Las viudas, a las viudas. That means to the widows. And then what did they bring them? Las rosas. Did your parents bring the roses to the widows? And you say, no, they didn't bring them to them. They didn't bring them to them. How do you think you say it? No, they didn't bring them to them. Did your parents bring the roses to the widows? No, they didn't bring them to them. How do we say that in Spanish? Tus papás les trajeron las rosas a las viudas. Can you think of it before I write it? I typed it really slow. No, no se las trajeron. So here's the issue. Les refers to las viudas, right? Les. That refers to las viudas, a las viudas, because it's an intransitive statement. We're using an indirect object pronoun, and it's being done to the widows, a las viudas. So whenever you see le or les, automatically you're searching for a something. So it's a las viudas. Tus papás are obviously the subject of the verb traer. And the thing that they are bringing are rosas, las rosas. So that is the direct object pronoun. And so the direct object pronoun, las rosas, that is las right here. But what does this say? The say is les. Les turns into say. Why does it turn into say? It turns into say because you can't have lay low in Spanish or lay las, right? You can't have lay followed by a direct object pronoun of the third person. You can't have lay or lays followed by lo or los or la or las. Does that make sense? You can't have lay low in Spanish. So if you have a lay low in Spanish, it has to turn into, the lay has to turn into say. Or the lays, for that matter, has to turn into say. No, no se las trajeron. No, they didn't bring. So it's no, no. They didn't bring. Trajeron means they didn't bring. Them is say. Those things, las rosas. They didn't bring them to him. No, they didn't bring them to him. Hopefully that is crystal clear. Okay, the next one. Le pusiste los zapatos al niño. Did you put the shoes on the child? Le pusiste los zapatos al niño. And you're going to say, no, I didn't put them on him. I didn't put them on him. I didn't put on his shoes. I didn't put them on him, which sounds kind of weird in English, but in Spanish, that's what we're looking to say. So how do we say it? because it's being done to him and the thing is los zapatos. Well, that's the third person. That's the third person. It's going to be le los, but it has to be se los, right? So we say no, comma, no se los, and then what's the verb? Pusiste is the verb poner. In the preterite yo form is puse, which is an irregular verb in the preterite tense, as well as in the present tense, right? What is it in the present yo form? Poner, yo poner is yo pongo. Well, it's irregular in the preterite tense too. Yo puse, or in this case, no se los puse. I didn't put them on him. I didn't put them on him. No se los puse. Manuel le dijo la verdad a Verónica. So dijo means, that's the verb decir. Decir in the present tense, yo form is digo. Digo. I tell, I say. Yo digo. But in the past tense, it would be yo dije. Yo dije. But this says dijo because it's Manuel. Manuel dijo. He said. He told. Manuel le dijo a quién? To whom? A Verónica. What? La verdad. La verdad. The truth. Did Manuel tell the truth to Veronica? No, he didn't tell it to her. How do we say that in Spanish? No, he didn't tell it to her. No, he didn't tell it to her. And in English, we would probably just leave out the word it and say, no, he didn't tell her. He didn't tell her. No, he didn't tell her. He didn't tell her the truth. He didn't tell her. But in Spanish, we can't leave it out. We have to say, no, no. And what is it? I'm going really slow on purpose. I'm giving you time to think. No, no. I'll do it wrong first. No le la dijo. No, he didn't tell her it. He didn't tell her it. No le la dijo. But you can't have le la. The le has to be se. No se la dijo. La has to be la because it's la verdad. That's how you say the truth. La verdad. No se la dijo. La verdad no se la dijo. No se la dijo a ella. No se la dijo a Verónica. Pobre Verónica no sabe la verdad. No se la sabe. Okay. Now we have una alumna le tiró un zapato a su profesora. I actually got this out of this is a news article. I got it out of a news article. I guess a student, a female student, una alumna, I guess she threw a shoe at her professor. And then I guess the police came and wound up like helping the child. I didn't read the whole article, but this is a le tiró. So tirar means to throw. When you throw, that requires an object, right? So tirar is definitely a transitive verb because it requires an object for the most part, right? It's a transitive verb. So we say le tiró. Now it's le because it's like le gustó a ella. So it's a ella se le tiró un zapato. A zapato was thrown at her. And so since it was the shoe is the object, but throw is the verb. And so the throwing is being done to somebody, but it's being done to a thing. Well, the thing is the direct object pronoun. That is what is being thrown, but it's being thrown to a person. So the person is called the indirect object pronoun because they receive the action of the verb indirectly. Now, it's not always that clean cut and dried, but sometimes it is. And this would be a good case to, share that example. But like I said, the easiest way is just to think about it as like the verb gustar. If it's le, then obviously it's like le gusta a someone, right? And it's obviously an intransitive verb if you look it up in the dictionary and it says intransitive verb right next to it. And so that's a good way to think about it. Anyway, so una alumna le tiró un zapato a su profesora. And so we have to say, no, she didn't throw it at her. And so how do we say it? We say, no, comma, no se, which refers to the teacher. And then un zapato is masculine, so it's lo. No se lo, and then the verb is tirar, tiro. No se lo tiro, because it's the third person singular, the student, tiro. And so that's how we know who's doing the verb, through the conjugation. No se lo tiró. No se lo tiró. Daniel se le declaró a Elizabeth. Now, this one's kind of interesting because this is a reflexive se. Because declararse a alguien means that you declare yourself to someone. And so it's like when you tell someone that you like them. That's how you say that in Spanish. If you tell someone that you like them, you are declaring yourself to them. Declararse. And because it's being done to somebody, it's an indirect object pronoun. Le. A alguien. In this case, a Elizabeth. And we're going to say, no, he didn't declare himself to her. Which sounds weird in English. I would probably say, no, he didn't tell her. Did Daniel tell Elizabeth that he likes her? That's probably how I would translate that in English. It's more like when you ask somebody out. Like, did he ask you out? Did he ask her out? No, he didn't ask her out. So, Daniel se le declaró a Elizabeth. Daniel se le declaró a Elizabeth. How do we say, no, he didn't? He didn't ask her out. He didn't declare himself to her. You say, no. No. So the first one that has to come first is the reflexive pronoun se. And since there is no direct object pronoun, the only other one is the le, right? No se le declaró. No se le declaró. All right, guys. Did we get them all right? I think so. I put the answers over here. No te la abrí, no me la comí, no se las trajeron, no se las puse. Oh, no se, yeah, sí, no se las puse. Yeah, they look all correct to me. Okay. So, to go back to the beginning, how do you say I'm going to give them to him? I'm going to give them to him. Can you guys say I'm going to give them to him? Depends on what the thing is, right? And who they are. It depends. Anyway, hopefully you guys learned about double object pronouns. I also made another video on this in the past, but I think this one might be a little bit better. So if you have any questions on double object pronouns, put your comments down below, and I'll also give you another exercise down in the comment section if you guys feel like doing them. Okay? Muy bien. Hasta luego.